Buona giornata, mi chiamo Olga dall'Ucraina, io vivo temporalmente in Italia. I want to explain in some, briefly the reasons of Russian-Ukrainian war. And because in Italy, I understood people, they do not understand deep reasons, and not just in Italy, maybe in other countries. If you don't know deeply the, Russian-Ukrainian relationships, it never lived there, it is very hard to understand why Putin now started this war against Ukraine. Actually, for Putin, and yes, if we are talking for Putin as a representative of Russia, because in Russia, not just the Putin have this opinion, but I think a lot of Russians, not all, of course, cannot be all, but a lot of Russians, they support the same vision. Maybe they will be not that cruel, but anyway, they support this point of view that Putin told in one earlier interviews that the biggest tragedy for him that USSR stopped of 20th century is that USSR stopped to exist as a country. Actually, in Russia, I understood that the idea to restore USSR is very important idea. A lot of people want this. Maybe not youth, not people from St. Petersburg or some, more western parts of Russia, but there are also maybe some people who think so, but especially in the middle Russia, somewhere a little bit closer, some towns of Russia, or even in the Moscow, some people, they think that USSR should be restored. And actually, if we are talking very briefly, that Putin started this war to restore USSR. Because without Ukraine, as much maybe that people who support Putin and Putin himself, they think that without Ukraine, USSR will be not complete. Like Ukraine is very important. And Ukraine, now the country that have independent politics, and Putin cannot influence it. Cannot, before he want to make Yanukovych and keep Yanukovych as a president for a long time, because this person who easy to, to control him, to make him dependent of Putin, and actually make the whole country, Ukraine, dependent on Russia and on Putin, as the same he did with, for example, Belarus. For example, Lukashenko, he is very sly, he tried to play his own game, he tried to stay as a president, and he became a dictator. He very cruel with his own people to keep this power. But anyway, in general, in international politics, Lukashenko, and by money also, Lukashenko depends on Russia. And in Russian politics, a lot of Russian agents and actually Belarus people, they do not speak Belarusian language. They prefer to speak Russian language, and even presidents speak Russian language and say that Belarusian, his own language, it's not enough for Belarusians. They cannot live without Russian. So that is kind of point of view Russia and Putin like, that this state is not independent. For rest of the world, Belarus is separated country, but in general, if you learn this, deeply, it's not independent. And the same he wanted to make, with Ukraine, and he didn't, nothing happened. Ukraine and Ukrainian politics and Ukrainian presidents, they're not dependent on the will of Russia, on the will of Putin. So Putin disliked that, and the war, it was like a last, last thing he can do to return Ukraine and to make dependent Ukraine on Russia, and actually in future and following to restore USSR. Because Ukraine now go west, and he understood that he lost, and actually he lost Ukraine, and he almost lost, and he had no any chance to return it back just to just to capture it by by army, because war it's very expensive thing, and it is the last thing people like presidents or tsars or kings doing when other means helpless, so they cannot put here some agents, use fifth column or something, people who support this union and between Ukraine and Russia, and to make them, presidents or some important people in Ukraine. So it didn't work, and that's why Putin started this war. But if we watching deeply why it happened, I want to explain now it's from the Ukrainian side. In Ukraine, it's very important and since the USSR stopped to exist, the society, the social opinion is very important. In Ukraine was a lot of oppositional politics, or even if they were not politics, but journalists who write the truth, just people who like volunteers or leaders of some movements, social movements that gather people around, and they told truth, and this is political and national struggle inside Ukraine was, and that fifth column that support Russia, like they're Ukrainians, but actually they support the Ukraine will be not independent country, but with union with Russia. They always was a struggle between people who support Ukraine as a European independent country, and that Ukrainian that will be corrupted, like led by mafia, that will be led by Putin. And in Ukraine, people are very long time ago, they already they want change, they want democracy, but that government, you remember Yanukovych, that was prime minister, the president of Ukraine, that actually have criminal past. He's set in the jail, and he's not smart person, but when he was become a president, he tried to take just take the businesses, successful big businesses from businessmen, and gave it to his sons. And actually he demanded from the successful people who have really successful companies with big profits. He demanded 40% of money that they should give to Yanukovych, and he will not destroy their company. So actually, Yanukovych was a classical mafia, and Ukrainian society with leaders of national movement, of democratical, development of Ukraine, they were very upset because of it, and a lot of such leaders were killed. You remember, first Maidan in 2004, it was like Orange Revolution. Then 10 years after, the Revolution of Dignity is 2014. And actually the reasons why people came to the streets, that's Ukrainian society, Ukrainians in general, simple Ukrainians, they were and they are ready for change. They want normal government, they want democracy. For Ukrainians, doesn't matter what language you are talking, Ukrainian, Russian. Of course, a lot of Ukrainians want to return more, for more strong position Ukrainian language, because it's it's our language. But anyway, we do not pay the attention and to that problems all languages, as Russia paid to this attention in Ukraine, in our country, not in their country, because in Russia do not exist at least one Ukrainian school. They do not have at least one Ukrainian school on the territory of Russia, but they said that why in Ukraine not all speak Russian. So you see, this politics is completely like in one-way politics, just on their condition. And So these Maidans happened because Ukrainian society want to change their everyone in not everyone, but you know that people who corrupted, who are not fair in the government, in the Verkhovna Rada, in president himself. So people wanted this change. They don't want to have mafia on the top to lead them. And that's why this Maidan happened. And for Putin, especially that Maidan in 2014, it was like a knife in the heart because it broke his old dreams about USSR restoration, that USSR will be restored. And he tried to find some leaders in Ukraine that will lead Ukrainian society backward to east, to Russia. And he cannot understand that actually this happens not because some leaders say so, that because Poroshenko or Zelensky doing this. This is Lolita jumped. Not because of some leader. It happens from the basis, from the depths, you know, and all Ukrainians support that. And that's why if, for example, will be no alive Poroshenko, Zelensky or other president, it doesn't matter because there will be another leader because it is all Ukrainian society against this. That's why he started this war, and that's why he killed simple Ukrainians.